What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my updated college football playoff predictions as we go into week of number 11 of the 2024 college football season. The first playoff rankings, of course, officially come out tonight, so are you ready? The first playoff rankings coming out officially tonight. I think they'll be coming out at 7 o'clock Eastern time, if I'm not mistaken. So, looking forward to the playoff rankings tonight. Let me guys know what you think, who is going to be in those first top 25 playoff rankings for tonight down in the comments below. But yeah, this is the predictions. We've been doing this week by week. We're going to give you my playoff predictions here and show you the 12 teams that I have here in the first 12-team playoff for this season. And we've been doing this week by week, and I have made several changes here, throughout the week by week. I think the early part of the season I didn't really make a ton of changes, but then the last few weeks I have made a ton of changes. So I did make a few changes, one change to the Power 4 Conference Champions, and then also the changes to some new at-large teams. So let's go ahead and get into my playoff predictions here for Week 11. Here is the bracket for the 12-team playoff. So we'll start with my top 4 conference champions. I got Oregon at number 1, Georgia at number 2, Miami at number 3, and then BYU at number 4. So we'll get to BYU here in just a moment. They are the new team here in these Power 4 Conference Champions. I have made a change, though, with the number 1 seed. I have Oregon at number 1 this week. I think Oregon might be the best team in the country. You look at Georgia in their game against Florida. I really don't feel confident that Georgia is going to be that number 1 seed. I feel like it's going to be a Big Ten team that might get that number 1 spot. I mean, it's very tight here between the SEC and the Big Ten because they both have very tough conferences and very tough schedules as well. So I think Oregon, they might have a better resume than, Georgia as of right now, because Oregon does have the win over Boise State, and they also got the win over the Buckeyes of Ohio State. So I feel like Oregon might have a better resume. Georgia has a loss, to Alabama. They got the win over Texas, though, but they also got the win over Clemson. I know that might be a better resume for Georgia, but based off of how Georgia played, in the last couple games, especially on the offensive side of the football, they continue to struggle, and I think Oregon might be a better offense than Georgia. So I got the Ducks here at number 1 for this week, and then Georgia at number 2. Miami's been my number 3 seed ever since, week 1, ever since I made that, change there after the first weekend of college football. I think Miami is going to win out. They're going to go 12-0 to get to the ACC championship. I mean, the, team that they might play in that conference championship might be SMU, as it looks like right now. I mean, that is what the standings are looking like. SMU is second place. They haven't lost a conference game yet. Miami doesn't play them in the regular season. But don't count out Clemson or Pittsburgh. I mean, Louisville's got now like 2 losses, I believe, in the ACC, so Louisville can still sneak up there. Somehow if Clemson were to slip up, maybe Pittsburgh slips up, or maybe SMU slips up. But I think SMU gets in because they got the head-to-head win over Louisville, so I really wouldn't count out Louisville just yet, but... And this is about Miami. This is about Miami a little bit more. I think they're going to go 12-0. They got a schedule that sets up pretty well the rest of the way. They got Georgia Tech coming up on Saturday. If they get past that Georgia Tech team, then I think Miami's going to win out. So I got the Hurricanes here at number 3. And then I made a change here for the Big 12 champion, and that's BYU. So the Cougars are in my playoff predictions for the first time all season long. It took them a while, but, BYU is a team that's been pretty dominant in the Big 12. They've beaten some of their teams like fairly easily. Some of them maybe have been close games, but yeah, BYU is undefeated. They're the only undefeated team now in this conference, so I got to put BYU here at number 4. Plus Kansas State and Iowa State both went down this past weekend, so I think it's going to be either 2 of those teams, but don't count out Colorado. Kansas State, they have now lost a couple of conference games. They're still not out of it. Iowa State just has 1 loss, and then you got Colorado with just 1 loss. So I think it could be BYU or Colorado in the Big 12 championship. But as of right now, I do favor BYU to win it all in the Big 12. I mean, BYU's schedule, I think they're going to probably slip up somewhere. But if they get past those tough tests, I think BYU might go 12-0. and they probably could lose the Big 12 championship. But I got the Cougars here at number 4. And then Boise State, I've had this team at number 12 ever since my preseason. I still think they're going to be one of those highest group of 5 teams in those rankings out of the group of 5 teams. And they'll be number 12 here in these playoff, in the playoff and everything. And they'll be that group of 5 champion in the Mountain West. I mean, they got a much more better resume compared to Army. Army hasn't really played anybody that tough, to be honest. And then you got Navy, who's now just lost 2 games in a row. So I don't think either one of those teams make the playoff. I think Boise State's going to have the best resume out of the group of 5 teams. So I got the Broncos here at number 12. All right, let's now get into the at-large teams. We'll start with my number 5 seed. That's going to be the Ohio State Buckeyes. So I got Ohio State here at number 5 this week because let's say that Oregon beats Ohio State here in the Big Ten Championship. Ohio State will get that really top at-large spot because they are the number 5 seed, and they're, Oregon's actually number 1, but they'll get that number 5 seed because of their resume. If they lost to Oregon twice, and then they got that win over Penn State. So I think the Buckeyes get that number 5 seed, and, Oregon, like I said, is that number 1 seed, so they are probably the top at-large team in these playoff predictions. So I got Ohio State here at number 5. We move on down to number 6. I got Texas. So Texas comes in at number 6. I feel like it's going to be Georgia versus Texas in the SEC championship as of right now. I mean, Texas and Georgia both have like 1 loss in the SEC, and then you got these other teams. The SEC is crazy. There's a lot of teams that can still make it to the SEC championship. You got Ole Miss. They have 2 conference losses, but they're not really out of it as a playoff team. You got LSU and Alabama. They'll go head-to-head this upcoming weekend. And then you got Tennessee with just 1 conference loss as well. So the SEC has just been crazy. Don't count out Texas A&M either. I know they just took a beating by South Carolina, but that team is also still alive. So the SEC is going to be definitely a crazy race. And also, these teams have beaten up on each other this year, and there's just been a lot of great games in the SEC. But I think it's going to be Texas and Georgia still. I've had this ever since my preseason prediction. I'm still going to stick with it. But I think Georgia and Texas, Georgia's got a test coming up against Ole Miss, and then Texas, they will be back in action this weekend against Florida. If Texas or Georgia kind of slip up somewhere on the schedule, then yeah, it's going to be 2 different teams in the SEC championship. So keep an eye on that. We now move on to number 7. That's another SEC team, and that's Tennessee. So Tennessee gets in here at number 7. They got the win over Alabama, which is pretty impressive. I mean, they don't really have any big wins on their resume, but they got the win over Alabama. I think that will probably be enough to get them into the playoff. But if Alabama loses to LSU, then maybe that Alabama game is just a solid win. As of right now, it's a good win. It's not like a great win. It's just a good win for Tennessee. I think Tennessee, though, is going to go 10-2 with a loss to Georgia. I still pick Georgia to win that game. But as of right now, you look at the offense for Georgia. If Georgia doesn't get their offense, corrected and everything, then Tennessee might have a chance to pull off a huge upset, and Tennessee might have a chance to get to Atlanta. So watch out here for the Volunteers. Number 8 for me is Penn State. Penn State, I think, is going to go 11-1. Their schedule kind of sets up really well the rest of the way. They had a tough loss, though, to Ohio State. I mean, if they would have won this game, they probably would have been at the number 5 spot, to be honest, with a chance to probably, compete against Oregon in the Big Ten Championship, or I should say, take on the Ducks in the Big Ten Championship, but they came up just short. So Penn State, I think, will get in there as an at-large team, though. I mean, they got that loss to Ohio State now, so that would probably be enough for them to get into the playoff, depending on what Ohio State does here for the rest of the year. But I got the Nittany Lions here at number 8. Number 9 is going to surprise a lot of people, to be honest. I got this team, probably winning out and making it to their conference championship. And they probably come up short, but I think they'll probably get in there as an at-large team, maybe at 10-2, to be honest, because that's how they finish out and everything, or maybe 11-1. And they probably get in here as an 11-2 team, and that team is SMU. So I got the Mustangs here out of the ACC, making it into my playoff predictions for the first time as well. You look at SMU's resume, it's pretty good. They got a loss to BYU in the early part of the season. That's a great loss for them. And then they got the win over Louisville, which is looking like a better win for SMU. So yeah, the Mustangs, I think they win out. They go 11-1. I mean, the schedule really sets up nicely the rest of the way. And if they make it to the ACC championship and then lose the ACC championship, they're going to get in there as an 11-2 team. So I really don't want to put SMU out of here in this conversation. I think the committee has to keep an eye on SMU as well. So watch out here for the Mustangs. They're here at number 9 for me in my predictions, though. Number 10 for me is going to be Notre Dame. They were here at number 10 for me last week. Notre Dame doesn't really have like a better resume than SMU does, but Notre Dame has a win over Texas A&M, and they also got the solid win over Louisville. So maybe that's a better resume than SMU, but, SMU has a loss to BYU. BYU is like a top 10 team, so that's the reason why you're seeing SMU ahead of Notre Dame here. But, yeah, the Fighting Irish, that Navy game is not looking like a really good win now for Notre Dame, but they still got a chance to make it to the playoff. I think they'll probably win out, go 11-1. That one loss, of course, just coming to Northern Illinois. If Notre Dame did not lose that game, I think Notre Dame probably would be at number 8 or number 9, but they're here at number 10 for me in my playoff predictions here. So I got the Fighting Irish here at number 10, and then we move on to number 11. This may not surprise a lot of people, but this team continues to play really good football, and that's the Indiana Hoosiers. So Indiana is also my first in here for the first time in my playoff predictions throughout the entire season. This team is undefeated. They're 9-0. They have played really good football all year long. And this Indiana team has a chance to probably go 12-0. Not saying they're going to beat Ohio State, but at least they'll probably be competitive. I still got the Buckeyes winning that game. I think, Indiana's going to beat Michigan this weekend, and then they'll probably go 11-1 to, end things out the rest of the way. Maybe Indiana doesn't make it to the Big Ten Championship because Ohio State will probably beat them in the head-to-head. Ohio State will probably be 11-1, same thing with Indiana. But if Ohio State does win the Big Ten Championship, Indiana probably gets in there as an at-large team because Indiana is a one-loss team. I don't think the committee can put them out of there. But if they got the loss to Ohio State, that's really a good loss for them. Then you have to really consider putting Indiana in here as a number 11 spot. Or they could be a number 10 seed if Notre Dame probably slipped up somewhere. I got the Hoosiers here at number 11 just because they're undefeated. And this team has just been playing really solid football on both sides of the football. So those are my playoff teams here. Let's now make predictions here if these games were to happen this weekend. We'll start with those first round games that are held, of course, on campuses. I think Penn State beats SMU in that first round game. It's a really tough place to play there for the Mustangs. Penn State just really too good. I don't think SMU is really on Penn State's level either way. And then I got Ohio State. I think they take care of business against Boise State. Ohio State's defense will definitely shut down Ashton Jeanty, that running back for Boise State, and they really give him a hard game. So I got Ohio State moving on to the second round. Tennessee, I think, beats Notre Dame just because of the home field advantage. Tennessee's defense looks a lot better than Notre Dame's do this year. Notre Dame might have the offensive advantage, but that's a very tough place to play in Knoxville. I think a playoff game at Knoxville will be really, really wild. There will be over 100,000 fans there in that first round playoff game for Tennessee. And then I think Texas beats Indiana here. I think it's a close game for a while, but I think Texas probably pulls away in that game in the second half. So those are my first round predictions. Let's now move on to the quarterfinals. I think Oregon beats Penn State here in the second round. I think it would be a really good defensive game, but I got to give the offensive advantage to Oregon. And then Ohio State, I think they take care of business against BYU. I think the Buckeyes might have a chance to probably be a dangerous playoff team, and I think they dominate BYU here. I don't think BYU is on Ohio State's level either, so I think the talent level is just not there for the Cougars on this Ohio State team. Tennessee and Georgia in a rematch likely for the second time. I think Georgia probably wins that rematch. I think Kirby Smart will have this team ready to go against this really good Tennessee offense. And then the defense, I think it probably will be a low-scoring type game because both defenses look like they're pretty good. But I got Georgia winning it anyway. And then Miami and Texas, boy, this would be a really good matchup here, but I got to go with Texas here in this one. I do trust Steve Sarkisian's offense a little bit more than the Miami offense a little bit, so I got Texas moving on to the semifinals. And then the semifinals are just like the preseason, Georgia versus Texas for the third time, and then Oregon and Ohio State for the third time as well. Same predictions here that I had in the preseason. Ohio State beats Oregon, in the third matchup, and then Georgia beats Texas for the third time in a row. And I'm going to change my pick, though, for the national championship. I think Ohio State wins this here against the Georgia Bulldogs, again, based off of how Georgia's played, throughout the last couple of weeks, and Carson Beck, in that offense. I don't really feel confident with Georgia winning a national championship. If they don't get that offense, really sorted out, that's going to be definitely a concern here going forward for the Bulldogs. So The way Ohio State played against Penn State, that really tells me that Ohio State might have a chance to be a dangerous team here going the rest of the way forward. And I am changing my pick here. And mostly a lot of people did pick Ohio State in the preseason. I did pick Georgia, but I'm going to change my pick here. Ohio State wins it here against Georgia in the national championship. So those are my updated playoff predictions heading into Week 11. Don't forget we have the first playoff rankings coming out tonight. Again, I want to hear your thoughts about those playoff rankings tonight. Who do you think is going to be ranked in those top 25 rankings? And also give me your thoughts and your comments down in the below for my playoff predictions. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.